Hello plant friends, welcome back to the Plant Prince PH, your go-to channel for cactus care. In this second episode, I will show you how I acclimate cactus seedlings and transplant them. This video is an update on the Astrophytum seeds I sowed which was uploaded this January. If you haven't watched that video yet, I highly recommend checking it out first before watching this one. Today marks exactly 3 months since I sowed the seeds. Here is how the seedlings look now. They have been receiving full filtered sunlight for the past months. Today, I'm going to start acclimating them to the outside environment. I will be opening the container slightly to slowly introduce them to the outdoor conditions. Opening them abruptly can shock the seedlings, as these seedlings are used in a high humidity environment. Here is how the seedlings look. As you can see, the seedlings look plump and healthy, which is a great sign. Notice that they have vibrant color, which results from growing in a high humidity environment. I will also be opening these other containers, which were also sowed 3 months ago. I will let these seedlings acclimate for at least 1 to 2 weeks before completely opening the container. These seedlings will be placed in an area where they receive around 8 hours of filtered sunlight. I use a 200 micrometer UV plastic sheet and at least 50% shade net for protection. After a week, the humidity inside will equalize with the humidity outside, and the potting mix of the seedlings will also start to dry. This is when I will completely open the containers to fully expose them. You will notice that the seedlings start to change color. The seedlings now will have a deeper color with a faint reddish or brownish color. This is a sign that their skin is beginning to harden and adapt to a lower humidity environment. Now that these seedlings are fully exposed to the outside environment, I need to water them at least twice a week. When watering, I usually mix a biostimulant into the water. I use Siam Early Grow, which contains plant growth hormones and vitamin B1, including ANA and IBA hormones. This helps the seedlings become robust and develop a strong root system. I have already added some of the biostimulants to this water. Regardless of the brand you use, always make sure to follow the recommended dosage on the instructions. Water the seedlings, ensuring their potting mix is moist but not wet or soggy. Avoid letting the potting mix dry out for weeks. When cacti are juvenile, they require more frequent watering to support their growth. But as they mature, they adapt to needing less frequent watering with longer intervals between each session to mimic their natural arid environment. After watering, place them again in an area where they'll receive plenty of filtered sun exposure. In my case, I just place them alongside my other mature cacti. I will wait another 3 months before I start to replant the seedlings. I may not be able to take a video every time I water them, but just know that I water them at least once or twice a week. Again, here is how the seedlings look now. By the way, you can remove the seed coats if you want. These are empty, since they have already germinated. In an instance where there are some seedlings that are lying down, you can gently straighten them so they will grow upright. After another 3 months, here is how the seedlings look. The seedlings are now crowded in the pot. They have grown bigger and their skin has become thicker and well acclimated to the outside environment. Some of the seedlings have developed a more stressed color because they are running out of nutrients. You might notice that the seedlings and potting mix in the middle are raised due to a lack of space, causing some of the seedlings to not receive adequate moisture, which gives them a more stressed appearance. This indicates that it is time to repot these seedlings. Here are the other seedlings that we opened last time. These are a bit larger because they were able to deform their plastic container, giving them more space to grow. They also retain moisture better, which is why they don't look as stressed compared to those in the white pot. Here is how the seedlings' roots look after 6 months. The roots are now thicker and more robust, making this the perfect time for repotting. To encourage strong and bigger root growth like this, consider adding biostimulants and reducing water frequency. But be careful not to let the potting mix dry out for too long. By the way, here are other seedlings I sowed at the same time as the others. As you can see, they are bigger because they had more room to grow and access to more nutrients, as only a few seeds germinated. I think I forgot to spray fungicide in this container, which is likely why only a few seeds germinated. Fungus or molds probably affected and killed the seeds. As you can see, there are many seeds that did not germinate. Anyway, these are the seedlings that we will be repotting. Let us start by making the cactus potting mix for these seedlings. You can use any potting mix that is well draining, retains a bit of moisture, and improves aeration. In my case, I will be mixing equal parts of pumice and soilless mix. The pumice I use is around 1 to 3 mm in size. Pumice improves the drainage and aeration in the potting mix. It is also lightweight, which is good for delicate roots of cactus seedlings. Moreover, the air pockets in pumice can hold nutrients, water, and air, and release them when needed. For the soilless mix, I mix equal parts of carbonized rice hull, coco peat, and peat moss. Carbonized rice hull helps improve soil structure and drainage. They contain beneficial nutrients and have insulation properties that help regulate soil temperature. Coco peat, on the other hand, helps retain the right moisture to keep the potting mix moist but not soggy. It keeps the potting mix light and fluffy, which is perfect for the seedling's delicate roots. It also has natural resistance to pests and diseases. Meanwhile, peat moss, being naturally acidic, helps retain a soil pH of 5.5 to 6.5, which is optimal for nutrient availability. It retains nutrients added through fertilizer and suppresses soil-borne diseases by creating an inhospitable environment for pathogens. Just mix these two thoroughly to ensure an even distribution. You could add or spray some water if the potting mix looks dry. This will also help to distribute the soil components evenly. This potting mix is well draining, retains the right amount of moisture, and has good aeration, which will all benefit the cactus seedlings. Now that we have prepared the potting mix, let us separate the seedlings in the pot. Gently squeeze the pot to remove the clump of cacti seedlings. As you can see, the seedlings' roots are all healthy and robust. Carefully separate the seedlings. Then brush off a bit of the old potting mix. Repeat this until you have completely separated all the seedlings. This one has long roots that have already penetrated the coco cubes at the bottom of the pot. You can actually cut the roots of these seedlings. Cutting the roots will encourage more feeder roots or fibrous roots. If you decided to cut the roots, here is how I do it. This is the top root or primary root, while these are the lateral or secondary and tertiary roots. What I usually do is cut the bottom part of the roots, leaving only a few centimeters of the top root. By the way, make sure to sanitize your scissors or pruning shears to avoid infection. Here is another one with long roots. Again, just cut the bottom part and then let the wound dry for at least a day. Aside from encouraging more feeder roots, Cutting the roots will also make planting them easier. Now that we have prepared the potting mix and the seedlings, let us now plant them. Here are the things that I use in potting. The first one is pumice. I add this at the bottom of the pot. You could also use cocoa cubes if you want. Next is the cactus seedling potting mix we made. For the top dressing, I will be using fine akadama. You can use other top dressings like fine pumice or fine silica sand. It is up to you which top dressing you will use. Adding top dressing helps keep the seedlings upright and create a layer between the cactus seedlings and the potting mix. For nutrients, I will be using Osmocote, which is a slow-release fertilizer. For insect prevention, I add Starkel G, a granular systemic insecticide. Then of course, some potting tools, a small trowel, and a spoon. I love using this green spoon since it has a pointed part at the end, which is perfect for making holes when planting. Tweezers are also useful. For the pot, I will be using this rectangular plastic container. I just poked some holes in the bottom. This is actually a food container from a fast food chain here. Instead of throwing it away, we can reuse it. You could also use a seedling starter tray if you want. I use this tray when the seedlings are a bit larger, but since the seedlings I am repotting are smaller, I prefer to pot them in a community pot. The first thing I do is add some pumice to the bottom of the pot to cover the holes and keep the organic components of my potting mix from washing away when watering. Adding pumice also improves aeration at the bottom of the pot. You can also use cocoa cubes or cocoa chips if you want. This is beneficial if you don't water the seedlings regularly or if you live in a hot and dry area where the potting mix tends to dry out quickly. Next, I add the potting mix up to a few centimeters from the rim of the pot. Make sure to push the potting mix or top the pot to ensure the potting mix settles. You could also start mixing some slow-release fertilizer into the potting mix. Add more potting mix if needed. Make sure that the potting mix is leveled so it will be easier to plant the seedlings. When planting seedlings, I simply make holes. Then put the seedling in the hole. Push the potting mix until the roots are covered. You could also use chopsticks to make holes. Sometimes it will be hard to plant the seedlings, especially if they have long roots. This is where cutting the roots is an advantage. Trimming the roots makes planting easier. After planting all the seedlings, add some Starkel G. Starkel G is a systemic insecticide that will prevent insects. Here is another way of adding Osmocote. Evenly add Osmocote in between each seedlings. Osmocote will give the cactus seedlings a steady supply of nutrients for at least 3 to 6 months. Next, add the top dressing. The advantage of using akadama is that it will not scar the bottom part of the cactus seedlings, even if the cacti start to crowd the pot. This is because it does not have any sharp edges unlike scoria or lava rock. In addition, akadama changes color when wet, which is useful if you forget when you last watered your seedlings. And there you have it, a newly transplanted cactus seedlings. For sun exposure, these seedlings receive around 8 hours of filtered sunlight. My greenhouse has a 200 micrometer UV plastic sheet and at least a 50% shade net to protect them from intense sunlight during the peak of the day. Now, I am going to show you how I water the cactus seedlings. I will be adding a biostimulant or a plant growth hormone to the water. This will help encourage healthy roots and make the cacti robust. Just follow the recommended dosage when using this. In the meantime, I will be lightly watering these seedlings for at least a month, enough to moisten the potting mix and encourage root growth. When they are well rooted, probably after a month or two, I will water them thoroughly until the water comes out of the bottom of the pot. For frequency, water them when they are almost dry, but do not let the potting mix become bone dry. Here is an update after a week. If you will look closely, the seedlings have grown. This is evident from their new growth. You can see the light green growth between their ribs, indicating that they are now growing and their roots have adapted to the new potting mix. The top dressing I use has already changed to a lighter color, which indicates that I should water them now. Since these seedlings are just 1 week old after transplanting, I will just moisten the potting mix. By the way, I have added some biostimulants to the water. I will repeat this process for at least 3 more weeks before I start deeply watering them. The next update will come after 3 to 6 months. If you have questions, feel free to comment below. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more cactus and succulent videos. Until next time, happy planting!